Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, your exclusive source for 2A basketball. And now, your hosts, coming to you from the Slim Force Studio, Andy and Benny Hill.
Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to 2A basketball here in the, I don't know what's going on right now. It was super snowy in Salt Lake, and then it was warm down here today. That's Utah, almost springtime. I'm your host, Andy Hill. I'm here with the coach, Benny Hill, and the newest member of the Fourth Row, Peyton Shepard, and we are exhausted from a weekend of basketball. Is that safe to say?
That's safe to say. I have a basketball hangover. Tired.
We're all tired today.
That 2-hour drive home was some decompression.
Yeah.
But it was a lot going through my head last night.
It was a lot of fun, and we're tired. We'd like to thank our good friend Chris Jorgensen in the E18 office for once again being our title sponsor for any of your mortgage needs. Give him a call, 283-3000, turning houses into homes. A couple of announcements about the Fourth Row Podcast. Fourth Row Podcast is still the number one 2A basketball podcast in the state of Utah. 44 weeks running. We may be the only one, but we're still the number one. One other caveat, we'll never charge for anything that we publish.
Bingo.
Just want to throw that out there. The audio version of the podcast will release actually tonight. You'll be able to see it by Monday morning, and the YouTube version will release by Monday morning as well. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels at Fourth Row Media. You can catch the podcast on teamhive.live. If you missed any of the games over the weekend, watch the games, check out the podcast. Also, check out all of Peyton's stuff at Pay Shepard, and also PS Scenes. She took how many pictures over the weekend?
About 4,000.
4,000. So if you're looking for a picture of your kid and they played it all over the weekend, you'll probably find them there somewhere.
I think I might have one, and I'm working on editing them, so hopefully got them up, ready to be viewed tomorrow, maybe Tuesday. We'll see.
Awesome.
We'll see how fast I can work.
We'll make sure we'll throw up a link on our social media. I'm sure she will too. Go out and check those out. We saw a bunch of them. There's some pretty awesome shots that she took over the weekend. So I know she was tired.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, what we got going on tonight?
Tonight, basketball and a lot of basketball. There was a lot. I know Peyton and Coach Shep were up the duration. You went from start to finish, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. We hit every game on Thursday.
Wow.
And Friday?
No, not Friday.
Okay, we covered Friday.
We took a little bit of a break.
We covered Friday.
I think we just missed one.
And we all got Saturday. Scheduled tonight, we'll have a state tournament recap. We're going to go through the games, quickly. Some of the quarterfinal games, boys and girls. There was some matchups, some games in the boys that really changed the complete trajectory of the tournament. Early on, some big upsets. I don't know big upsets, but there was some. As far as rankings go, there was some upsets. Cover the state championship game. 2 fantastic state championship games. I mean, high drama. 4 great teams playing. We had, obviously, Beaver and Kanab in the girls' game, and Kanab Parowan in the boys' game. And we're just going to cover our overall thoughts of the weekend, because there was a lot. Also want to give a shout out to all the cool people that came up that we got to meet over the weekend.
There was a lot of them. It seemed like every time I sat down, I was just kind of sitting there watching games. People would come up and just say, "Hey, you got the Fourth Row guys?" I'm like, "Yeah, we are." I said, "Hey, we appreciate what you guys are doing."
It depends if they ask, "Are you guys Fourth?" It depends. It was all good.
Yeah,
I don't think we've ticked anybody off too bad yet.
No, I had a lot of conversations from a lot of different team people. There was a lot of random people who I
had no idea.
Apologize, I didn't get your name while we were there. They just came and said, "Hey, appreciate what you guys are doing. Thanks for all the hard work, and appreciate the shout outs you're giving to the kids." And so it's enjoyable. It's rewarding to be able to go.
Yeah. So I was just contrasting and thinking when we went to the SVC last year, which was our first season in, and then contrast it with this one, totally different.
Oh yeah.
Totally different. Just got to know, and most importantly, how many new people we've been able to meet that we would not have or didn't. Just a huge, bigger group of friends.
Yeah, I would say, and maybe you'd say the same thing. We were a bit starstruck last year.
Oh,
Maybe not starstruck. We were a little overwhelmed. Like, do we sit on press row? Do we go down where the media guys are?
Did you see you obviously saw the press row table.
Yeah.
It was on the court.
I wanted you guys to go down there. I'd take a picture of you.
It was unoccupied until the state championship games, and I seriously thought about it. I was set over. I was visiting with a friend on the other side, and it was unoccupied. I thought I should go sit down there. I'm like, man, it's really awkward.
That was really awkward.
Yeah, it's just
And
a weird place.
It was on the court.
Yeah, where SVC you're sitting there, but you're not on the court.
But you're elevated significantly above it.
Yeah.
What did you think about the SVC, Peyton?
What about it?
About that place hosting it compared to...
Oh, a slick? Oh,
excuse me. I said SVC.
Like, oh, it's great.
SVC hosting versus...
I mean,
excuse me. Salt Lake Community... Goodness gracious. Salt Lake Community College hosting versus SVC.
Not too bad. I mean, I was surprised. Well, not really. With the people we had in the state championship, they're always going to bring a lot of fans. But you just can't beat the SVC intros for the championship.
That was missing, huh?
Yeah. The razzle dazzle, making it a little special for the kids. Kind of gets your adrenaline going a little more when that happens too. But I mean, it was a fun gym. I liked how you could see the whole place was packed. Like those championship games, you couldn't find a seat. They had to open up the higher seating. But let's make it a little closer to home next time.
There were just a couple housekeeping things for me. Concession stand was too small.
I'm a popcorn guy. The popcorn was really small too. Their bags.
For the amount of people that I don't think they were really prepared to host that. You know, you had one small little concession stand. The SVC, at least you have a couple things going on. The other thing, and this is just a personal thing, I don't like it when they let kids go out and play on the court during a game. It just feels different.
That was interesting. Yeah.
At SVC, there's no way that's happening.
No.
Or any other, the Centrum or any other college facility, they're just not out there.
There's just some interesting things. Overall, it was a great atmosphere, actually. Very loud, great atmosphere. You're right there. In and out was a little bit tricky, getting people in and out between the games. But overall, there was a lot of people there.
Yes, there was. Can I tell you what my overall thought of the weekend was, Peyton?
Let's hear it.
And we've admitted this. We have admitted this on air, Andy and I. I've never been involved with girls basketball. I was thoroughly impressed with the play of girls basketball.
Good.
I thought
was fun.
Those girls games that we saw, the semifinal games and the final games, I honestly, this may sound really dumb and ignorant of me, I was blown away by the skill and the way how good the teams were put together, how well they were, how they played.
And they got after it.
I was impressed. That sounds dumb to say. Is that dumb to say?
No, it's not dumb to say. But I'm glad he's finally a big dog in the girl basketball world. He likes it now.
I do. I thoroughly enjoyed those games.
Yeah.
And there's some coaches on the girls' side that are intense.
Yeah, for sure. And I loved how they just got after it. Like, there was an extra chip on those girls' shoulders, and they played very well this weekend, I thought.
Girls are competitive, and there's some very skilled girls.
Oh, yes.
Some shooters just like, holy cow, just knocking bombs down from, Baldwin from APA, she's shooting NBA and beyond distance.
Oh, yeah.
Every game and hitting them. Not just a couple lucky ones, but she's chucking them, and they're going. So,
yeah.
Great skill in the girls' game. That was a big thing for me. The other thing that was very interesting to me, Andy, maybe you can talk about this a little bit, there was a lot of fouls. Abnormal amount?
It felt to me, at least for me, it felt like there was an extraordinarily amount of fouls, and I felt like every other call was an offensive foul or traveling. And maybe that was just me, and I just happened to notice those.
Maybe you're super hypersensitive, but I'm hypersensitive to the charge call.
But I thought, man, there's a lot of offensive fouls, and I know we'll talk about this here in a minute. Specifically in the boys' state championship game, when you're in the double bonus with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter, there's too many fouls.
Both teams.
Teams. There's.
Then that's a conversation which is
lot.
interesting, and maybe coaches have different opinions. Perhaps it's the way teams are playing defense. Maybe they're not playing clean enough. I don't. Maybe they're playing too aggressive, or the whistles have just an extremely tight whistle. I don't know, but there was a lot of fouls, and the pace of the play through the state tournament seemed kind of rugged.
Right. We talked about before we went on air. There was, at least on the boys' side, was never really a big run. Something would always happen, and then it would stop.
Or for one team, but even sometimes you get a lot of the real exciting games when there's a lot of back-to-back. Mm-hmm. One team scores, the other team scores, and it gets, the excitement raises. There never really was that.
Mm-mm.
seemed like everything was stopped by a ticky-tack hack up top by a guard or a charge call. There just seemed to be a lot of that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it was different. For me personally, I think it's different when you have, in this situation where you have most of these teams from down south, now they're going up north and they have different referees who they've never seen. The referees have never seen them as well. And I think it did affect the play overall. I really, that's my personal opinion. Now, officials are still going out and they're still going to try to call the best they can. But I think that does change because they're used to seeing different. They don't see these kids play. And these kids aren't used to the way these guys are officiating. And then there was different officials every single game. There was never, at least I never saw ones that did multiple games. And I think that makes a difference.
Can I tell you the one call that I wish they would regulate out of basketball? It's the call where if a player is driving and a player has the advantage to go score, they jump in the air, they've released the ball to score, and somebody slides underneath them and stands there and takes a charge when they come down and land on them. To me, it's not even defense. You're not even defending. It's not even a defensive play. You just happen to you just know, and you're gaming the rule. You're gaming the system. Basically, know that I could just hurry and slide underneath this guy and just stand here and let him land on me. I'm not sure how that's an offensive foul because you're not even in a legal guarding position. You're just standing there. Yeah. You're not defending a shot block or anything like that. You're not attacking the ball. You're just sliding underneath people. Yeah. And there was a lot of those.
There was a lot. The other
all
one,
weekend long there was.
The other one that really bugged me were the 2 offensive fouls that Riley Little had called on her after she grabbed the rebound and just cleared out. And she basically just brought the ball down and turned around to throw an outlet pass.
Yeah.
And they called an offensive foul. I'm like, what is she supposed to do? Just let them have the ball? I mean, there was a couple. Officials do their best.
That's a very, very gray area.
There's some very gray areas that I felt like they always erred on the conservative side, and I'm with you. To wrap it back up, there was too many fouls called this weekend.
Well, and that for some reason they always side on the side of the defender in those plays. I don't know why the offensive player is one that has the ball. He's the offensive player trying to score. Those charging calls always go against the offensive player. I just don't understand why you don't protect the offensive guy more than the defensive guy.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's one thing if you just bulldoze somebody. I understand that, or shove them off with an arm and push them out of the way. I get those, but I just think the offensive player should be protected a little bit more. And that led, in my opinion, to the low scoring and just the pace of the play. There's just too much of it.
Yeah.
But that's how defenders. That's how they gain their advantage now. They just game officials. And a lot of officials get fooled by the charge call, too, because kids are good at it. They take charges. They can flop good. And
well, if you're an official, what's better to call? A charge call or an offensive foul? Because everybody loves let's go the other way.
But here's the thing. here's the thing that always is fascinating to me, and it's just the overall appearance of it. Officials don't get too excited about calling a blockout foul or an over-the-back call, or they don't get overly excited about a guard up defending real hard and a hack call, but they get overly animated about a charge call.
That's interesting.
So why do they get so animated about a charge call?
That's a great point.
Because in my opinion is they're so wound up, they just want to but they overemphasize it way too much. Mm-hmm. I think that's why it just keeps adding to itself as to why it's such a big problem. Because they love that one.
It's true. They'd love to make that call. Actually, somebody called 3 seconds. How many times you get somebody called 3 seconds other than the church ball game? I mean, honestly, there was now the one time I will admit, we were watching the game. It might have been Riley.
She was in the paint for
she was in the paint, and they were counting in the Beaver game. She was probably in there like 10 seconds. But honestly, how many times during the season do you see a 3 second call? I mean, it's pretty rare, right?
The only time they usually call it is after the crowd is yelling
at
them. And no, this isn't pick on referee night, but But it was obvious.
But at the same time, I mean, you've got kids here that are playing their absolute best, and at some level, we're going to talk about some games and pick them apart a little bit. That's a huge part of the game, and we've talked about this a lot. Officials at some level are not accountable to most anything, right? And I don't mean they're actively out there trying to do a bad job, but
Well, when you look at from a player's perspective and a coach's perspective, you look at a game like last night, and I'm not saying that there was any calls that really that immediately changed the impact of the game, but based upon referees leaving that game afterwards, do they have as much? Did they have as much buy-in as what, say, Kel Glover did in losing a championship? You know, kids put so much on the line, and coaches put so much on the line for this, and referees have a big role in all of it.
That's true.
Like, this isn't bag on referee night, but
I think it was.
But it brings up
it made a big enough point
it.
with a lot of people over the weekend. Was it was somewhat a factor in the pace of play and a lot of things that happen. So
anyway, I'm off that one for a second. But it was a good weekend. A great crowd. Met a lot of people, met a lot of kids, and we saw a lot of basketball, which is obviously that's what we're here for, is to highlight kids and to talk about the game. So should we just fire into the games?
let's go.
Let's do it. Thursday. We start off with the boys Thursday morning.
Yep.
Which is always an interesting thing because you got a lot of travel. So a lot of these teams had to show up Wednesday night, I'm assuming. Yep. Well, yeah, they would have. Kanab would have. All the southern teams would have likely showed up Wednesday night to be ready Thursday morning. Kick us off, Andy.
Yeah, so the opening game, 9:30 game, Kanab plays APA West Valley. We weren't there on Thursday, but I did catch most of this game. Kanab played pretty much flawlessly in the game. They came out, played the game that they needed to. They handled APA West Valley. All their guys played well. They shot the ball well. 72-59. It was a 13-point game, but it was really never in question.
Yeah.
Kanab
got out early, and they just...
Yeah, Kanab played really, really well, as good as I think they could have, given the fact that they've got to travel the night before and stay over and get up and play that 9:30 game. Kanab played really well. So that took us, there were not a whole lot to say about that one. They came and got the job done. Moved us to the 11-10 game, which was really one of the games of the day.
I think a lot of people had this one highlighted. This was one of the ones that everyone, when the original brackets came out and I think the RPA came out, this is one that most people looked at and said, this is going to be a tough matchup for Millard. And it played out that way.
It did. Millard jumps out. I'm just looking at the box score here. They jump out 19-12 in the first quarter. At halftime, they were still up 7 points. And in the in the third quarter, Millard just went cold. They scored 6 points. Just didn't seem like they got in more momentum. And that's the thing with Duchesne. If you let them get some emotion, and they've been playing with a lot of emotion up there. They lost a close member of their fans up there. I think they were playing not only with the chip on their shoulder, but they were playing with a lot of momentum. And the other thing too, I think they're saying, hey, we got nothing to lose. We've played Millard tough twice already this year and 2 times the year before. We knew we can play with, and they just played with a lot of confidence and came out, pushed the game into overtime, and eventually took it.
I would imagine, Peyton, tell me what you think about this. If you've played a team 4 times and you've lost by an average of 3 points per game, going into this state playoff game, I would imagine Millard had much more pressure on them than Duchesne did.
Oh, absolutely. And, people always say you can't beat a good team 3 times. I mean, they beat them 4 times, but going into that, Duchesne had to have a little extra fire, and Millard knew they were coming for him.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I didn't have a preference really who won that game, but it was cool to see Duchesne take it, just kind of year after year, game after game. They just fell a little bit short, and when it mattered, they got them. And unfortunately, Millard being a very senior-heavy team, they fell short, but it was a great game. Great game to watch.
Hunter Rhodes in that game had 29, carried Millard offensively with 3 threes. Brant Stevens, 11, Kenyon Gillen, 7. And you look at Duchesne's scoring. Jep Young had a fantastic tournament. He's played well.
Oh, yeah.
Most all of the season played well. Jep finishes with 17. Dallin Porter, probably his best game of the season. Mm-hmm. Probably the best game of his career.
He's really came on the second half of the season.
He looked great in the post, scoring in the post, rebounding, defending. I thought it was a fantastic game for him. K. Gines, steady always, 11 points. Parker Crum 7. One thing about these games, they play so well. Parker Crum doesn't score well against Millard.
No, he
just
doesn't.
traditionally
Never
have it.
has.
And that's Millard's game plan. Obviously, they try to shut him down, but they haven't had an answer for Jep Young each game they've played. And so Duchesne in general, this game and Friday night's game, even Saturday, Duchesne just came to play.
I think they played with as much as intensity as any team
outside of Jep Young. They're undersized compared to everybody they face, and at the guard line, exceptionally undersized compared to who they're facing. And man, he just sends these guards out there, and they just wreak havoc amongst other teams. Defensively, Coach Hoops, he did a fantastic job. I thought probably the best coaching job of the tournament. What he did to get his kids through to playing on Saturday.
Yeah, and you look at every game they played. They were, Millard was size-wise that was close to matchup as you were going to have.
Yes.
And they played Kanab. They were clearly outmatched, height-wise and strength-wise. I mean, Kanab's got some big guys with Janes and Little and Brown, but they took them to the wire. And then against American Heritage, I mean, they're for surely outsized. And they pushed that right to the ends, and unfortunately they lost that game. But, kudos to Coach Hoops. He had his guys. He had a game plan, and they didn't back down to anybody.
I got a chance to visit with him after it was after the Kanab game. And I personally thought his coaching execution, just watching how he managed and controlled that entire game, offensively and defensively, with his timeouts, with his substitutions, with his defensive adjustments. I thought it was the best coaching job of the tournament.
Very good.
To keep his team in, to get the win Thursday, and to keep his team in, and they had a chance to beat Kanab.
They did.
I know they scared the hell out of Kanab. They had a chance to beat Kanab.
There
was a high, very, very high likelihood. I'm sure Duchesne is extremely proud of what they did, but also perhaps somewhat disappointed. They had a chance to be in the finals. I mean, that's how well they played.
They were close.
How well Coach Hoops coached them. So that was a huge, on Thursday morning, that game, that got kicked off with kind of the upper seeds taking it on the chin.
Yep, that's true. And then that led us to the Enterprise Parowan Showdown. I think anybody who's familiar with the RPI, familiar with Region 19, knew this wasn't a 1 versus 8 matchup.
Not at all.
They'd split each other during the season. Parowan was number 1 in our Power 5 for a little while, and they fell back down. Enterprise is just steady Eddie, right? And on this night, Parowan came to play. I think that's what it came down to. One of the most interesting stats of the night. Of course, Brock Felder is going to get his points. Felder's Felder. But there was in the free throw game, Parowan shot 20 free throws. Enterprise shot 2. Interesting enough, both teams made 18 field goals. The difference in the game were those 8 free throws that Parowan made. 8 of 20. Now, they didn't shoot great. That's less than 50%. But that was really the difference maker. And I talked to a couple Enterprise folks, and they said, hey, there was a big discrepancy. With that being said, if they make double the amount of free throws, they beat us by 15.
Yeah,
and I think from Parowan's side, you look at the box score. Cash Mortensen, who
he had a great tournament.
He played as good as anybody on the guard line in the tournament. Yeah. I mean, the kid just played. He has 15. Felder had 15. Luke Millett, who is the difference maker with this team. He's the muscle.
Yeah, if you talk amongst Region 19 coaches, Luke Millett's a name that generally only comes up amongst coaches because of his value and what he does. I mean, he's 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah.
How do you have a quiet 6'6", 6'7" guy that everyone talks about? Obviously Felder gets all of the highlights, and rightly so. But without Luke Millett, he's not able to do what he does.
Mm-hmm. It's true. He's what you call that. It's the scrum guy.
He's the scrum guy. Loves scrum guys. You have to have them. And winning teams have scrum guys.
I noticed this thing about Millett too. He's stacked. He's a big kid.
Yeah.
And so you throw Felder in there, and then you got this other 6'7" muscle guy in there. He's doing all the dirty work for him. So Millett, when Millett has 14, I would say generally if Millett has more than 10 points in the game, Parowan's going to win.
I got a text from my good friend Jordan Stewart. I was at work, and he was mentioning. I think Luke had a fast break. I mean, Peyton, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you were up there. A transition lob dunk early in the game against Parowan, and Stu texted me and he said, "Hey, it's early in the game, but Parowan looks scary good." And I think from start to finish in this entire tournament, Parowan came to play.
And we knew that. And people asked me up there, they said, "Are you surprised Parowan won?" No.
I would bet you if we go back to our podcast last week when these brackets came out and Parowan or whatever they were at, when we were breaking down the matchups, we said Parowan they're a team that could drop the play-in game or win the state championship. Yep. And neither of those scenarios would we'd be surprised by.
No. Does it surprise me that they ended up winning? Not one bit.
No.
I mean, that's just who they are. Early in the season they dropped 2 games to San Juan, and then they turned around and win the state championship. That's just what they did. So Parowan wins that game 46-40. Final game of the day. This one was somewhat interesting to me. South Sevier, American Heritage. Now we've talked about American Heritage all year long. We've seen a couple games early on. Enterprise beat them by 30 right after the Christmas break.
Yeah.
I mean, just pummeled them. Other than that, didn't know a whole lot about them. And I watched this game on TV, and they dismantled South Sevier.
This one was shocking, and I think everyone with their same basketball eyeballs looked at this one and said, "This one." Those people that when we came Friday, they're like, "Dude, no one's going to touch American Heritage." It must have been that explosive in the gym. What they looked like.
It was
impressive.
It was, yeah. I think South Sevier kind of got into doing things South Sevier doesn't normally do as a team, but I thought American Heritage was going to the championship. But then the next day, they didn't show up the way they did against South Sevier.
No,
Size-wise, the optics, when we saw them that next night, I was like, holy cow. These guys are huge, and they're fast, and like this is not what I expected. And then things kind of fell apart the next night. But the little bit that I watched of this game, it was legit. It was fast and furious, and they were throwing up, and it was going in. And
it was just shocking that the stark difference between this one and then the next 2 nights.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this was them when they played bad the next 2 nights, or if this one was just an absolute anomaly.
Yeah, I will say the one thing we've kind of talked about all year long is the one challenge for South Sevier is when you have teams that'll run with them, but have more height,
have size.
That is their Achilles heel.
Yeah,
and American Heritage has both of that. Those guys were fast, they were quick, and they love to shoot the ball. And when it's going in, I can imagine they're tough. What hurt them later on the next night was they just couldn't make anything.
They did not make anything.
I mean, they think they were in double digits in the first half in the semis.
It was 5 halfway through the second quarter against Parowan.
And it wasn't because they weren't putting up shots. They just could physically not get anything up. But that's what I think. That's the worst matchup for South Sevier is the big, tall, long teams that can run with them and have the rebounding advantage. And I think it was just the perfect storm.
Yeah. Did you pay attention to much of American Heritage throughout the tournament?
Yes.
Just the overall presentation. It was very interesting. And I say interesting because it was unlike anything I'd seen before at a state tournament. And then this is not a criticism. It was just so stark different from what you would see out of 2A schools. I think there was 8 coaches on the bench.
Yeah.
If I counted correctly, 8 coaches, and you had a college-style warm-up before the games. You got guys out stretching. You got guys out helping them with ball handling, and a very choreographed pregame with guys cutting and passing and all this kind of stuff. And they really played to the crowd a lot. And the overall, there was a presentation there.
Oh, very much so.
That was very well thought out, and it was clean. I'm not going to say anything bad about it. It was just definitely different than what I'd ever
I'd say the look, the feel, everything about it. It was very.
It was very thought out.
Put
it that way.
Very thought out. Most teams come in, they've got their warm ups, and they got everything else. They're kind of doing their things. You got Duchesne, you got Jep Young. He's throwing on his cowboy stuff and everything else. They're coming back in, and that's just who they are, right? I mean, we're just a bunch of rural kids coming to play, and this was very different.
It was very strikingly different. Anyway,
yeah.
But they showed out well against South Sevier the first day. They did on the court. I think for Coach Quintana, that's the impression he wanted people to. That's American Heritage basketball the first day.
They made an impression.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They did. Yeah. Girls.
Okay.
Peyton, we've talked a lot. Time for you to carry the load here.
All right. So the first game at 4:10 was Kanab versus Parowan. And this is kind of, out of the 4 games, this is the one that was the most interesting. 58-56. Parowan gave Kanab their closest game of the tournament. So.
Isn't it crazy that, not to cut you off, but sometimes, and it's the same with the NCAA tournament, early round games, the higher seeded teams or the team that eventually wins the championship, they come very close to losing and not even having a chance to be in the championship. And this was one of them.
I almost wonder, do you think that's because of they know that they're good and they know that there's that pressure and who knows? Maybe
not quite 100% locked in, and the other team is playing the
they
underdog role, and they kind of come battling.
Yeah.
Highly likely.
Anyways, great game. Anna Cutler with 22, Riley Little with 20 points. So they led the way for Kanab. Brooklyn Hewlett had 17 for Parowan, but Kanab started out super hot. Parowan didn't give in. They kept fighting back. Fourth quarter, they outscored them by 4 to cut it to 2, but just was a little short. Cutler had 2 free throws down the stretch, and Taylor Janes had a steal and forced a turnover there at the end to kind of seal the deal. So huge game for Kanab, ended up being state champs, but that's a close one.
That's
a nerve-wracking one.
Oh, yeah. Parowan dominated the second half, outscored them 20-14 in the third quarter and 16-12 in the fourth quarter.
Huge second half for them.
Kudos to Kanab for hanging on.
Yep.
Anna Cutler is fun to watch.
She is. I love watching her play. She's a good little player. That rolled us into North Summit versus Millard. North Summit had a great third quarter. They outscored Millard 25-11. And Millard, so they did upset South Sevier. So that was, I wonder what.
I think they were a 9 or 10 seed.
I'll look and see.
Millard was.
Millard was a 10.
Okay.
South Sevier was a 7.
Okay, so upset there. North Summit just had a lot of offensive threats. I think Millard just couldn't quite hang, but, they came in fighting, and Peterson on North Summit had 16, so huge game for her. It's been a lot of like Heartland Richens or Chesney Langston up in those top scoring, but I really watched Presley Peterson this weekend, and she's a really good player.
She's good. She plays hard.
Kind of one of those scrappy ones very quiet.
Almost a scrum player.
Yeah, very quiet, but very athletic, and if you don't tune in on her, she's going to kick your trash.
She's a very physical
very
player.
Good.
Physical.
Very good.
Yep, and then going into that Beaver Duchesne game, Beaver won 50-37. Beaver had 3 girls in double digits, continuing with their main offensive threats. Duchesne fought hard in that game and just came up a little bit short.
Yeah, I watched most of that game. Duchesne, it was closer than the final 13-point spread.
It was.
It was a good game till the end, and Beaver was just too much for them.
I know you guys have talked about how Duchesne is, that their way of playing basketball is kind of tough. It's kind of a slower paced game, tough fouls and kind of a grinder game, and that's how their girls are too. I feel like it's the same way, but Beaver held them off. And then going into the last game of the night,
before you get to that one,
yeah,
I walked into the gym. I think it was when we very first walked in Friday, and I know who the gentleman is from Duchesne, and I space his name. He's like, make sure you mention on the podcast how well Duchesne played against Beaver.
They did.
I watched that game. I was very impressed at how they played.
So when you see me next time, Mr. Sir, hopefully you listen to the podcast. We gave you a shout out, your girls team.
They played well.
Definitely felt a lot closer than 13.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a 13-point game, no.
Uh-oh. Okay, going into Draper APA North Sevier, ended up being, are they the Eagles?
The Eagles.
Yes.
They have one of the best mascot logos around.
Their logo is pretty clean.
Yeah, it is. Outscored the Wolves by 10. Interesting stat here, Aaliyah Baldwin with 40 points.
She is legit.
She is. That's the first time I've seen her play in person, and she was unstoppable.
Now, her dad's the coach, right?
Yeah.
He is intense.
He is.
He actually was fun to watch.
He was. I
had no problem with it. I think
watching him
I think
more.
it's great.
The passion that he has for those girls is commendable. 100%, yeah.
For sure. Obviously.
How'd the Wolves do?
I got it. She's holding back.
What do I say here? Obviously, came up short. I felt personally that if a girl has 18 at halftime, there needs to be something done differently.
Defensive
and
adjustment.
Not let someone go off and have a 40 piece. I looked when they played Beaver the next night. Aaliyah wasn't on as much as she was against us, in my personal opinion, but there was a difference. There was a switch. We were face guarding her. It wasn't doing anything. She was getting in the paint. I'm pretty sure she shot like 18 free throws just by herself. But I personally would have liked to see something different to try and shut her down. But props to her, great player. Obviously, she nearly outscored our whole team. So
she is good.
Yeah.
I mean, in person, she's the real deal.
Yeah.
I was visiting with Parker Crumb's mother on Saturday, I believe, and she was pulling up her stats. She's a sophomore, correct?
Yes.
She's almost scored 1,000 points
Already.
Season. Oh, in her career.
in her career. Now, if someone puts up 1,000 in their career, that's highly impressive. That's a lot of points. She's put up, as of right now, according to the Des News, she's sitting at 997, but she's essentially put up 1,000 points after her sophomore season.
That's crazy.
So you start, Andy, that's almost Gary Hill territory.
Yeah. So he
all-time leading scorer type territory.
Yeah, so he's, just because we know he's a Gunnison guy and a relative, 2,300 plus in a career.
Minus a 3-point line.
Minus the 3-point line. But if you can get to 2,000, especially
that's
not
remarkable.
taking anything as a girls player, because generally you're not getting a 40 piece at night, right?
No.
I mean, that is amazing. And to watch her play, holy cow.
That's what's fascinating. You bring that up. She can shoot so deep that you have to come out and guard her beyond. I mean, at the SVC, you had the high school line, then you had the college line, which is, 2 feet further, something like that. I don't know the exact inches. NBA is 2 feet beyond that. She was beyond that mark.
By 2 or 3 more feet.
And she was making them consistently, so you have to extend out that far. And you know this, Peyton, if someone's going to guard you that far out and in your face, it's blow by.
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
For sure.
And she's just too quick, and she's too fast on the dribble that you can't keep up with her.
And she's also very good at drawing fouls, hence the 18 free throw attempts, but also she's good at finding her teammates. The Karchner girl, she's just there. She's ready. She catches the ball and finishes it. That's her job. And they just completely outplayed us, hands down. So props to them. That was a great game.
Special player there. Let's roll through the semi games on Friday night. Actually, we got girls first.
Yeah.
On Friday, you had Beaver versus Draper APA.
Yep. So Beavers ended up scoring 60, Draper APA 51. Beaver had 4 girls in double figures. So Tawny Air led the way with 16, but I always say it, I just love the team basketball that they play. And then Draper APA, like I talked about a little bit earlier, they held Baldwin to 24. It's kind of like a Brock Felder thing. She's going to get her points. It's just, can you contain it to a reasonable amount? 24 for her. I think she's averaging about 23, so about right on. But they didn't let her go off for 40. So huge win for Beaver. Great game. And then we had Kanab against North Summit. Kanab 51, North Summit 42. So this game, I'd have to pull it up.
My initial reaction or recollection from this game was the battle of the post players.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Langston versus Little.
And it was a fun matchup because both of them scored really well.
They did. I'm pulling up. So they both kind of have a slow first quarter. Kanab only have 4 points, which is kind of odd for a high-scoring team like them. North Summit had 9, so, and then Kanab comes out the second half, and they owned it. So it was 16-10 in the third quarter, 17-8 in the fourth quarter. Just a little bit too much for North Summit to handle. Riley Little had 16, Langston had 16, and Peterson had 15 for the Braves.
The other thing I noticed, Chesley Langston's a fantastic free throw shooter.
She is.
I mean, it's clean every time.
And, you kind of got to guard her on the three-point line, too, because she'll put them up.
Yeah, she stepped out. And
she did hit one that game.
And she had some mid-range stuff around the free throw line just to step out, easy jumper. So, great player.
Yeah, pretty smooth. And I liked seeing that little Langston matchup. It was fun.
Yes, it was fun.
Because not many girls are going to match Riley Little's height, obviously.
Yes.
I mean, Chesley's getting there, but it was just fun to see him battle it out in the bigs. You don't see that very often in girls.
And two real passionate fan bases, North
sure.
Summit and the Kanab, which was made for the semifinal games very, very fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, we'll move over to the boys' side on the semifinals night. The first game of the night was American Heritage, who had looked fantastic the night before, and then Parowan. Let's be honest, the first quarter was a stinker.
It was an absolute no doubter. 11-3 after the first quarter. Now, if you were to say the night before, after watching American Heritage play South Sevier the way they did Thursday, and the first thing we heard when we walked in the gym was how absolutely amazing American Heritage was and how well they thought. And then you watch this game, and they're sitting on 3 for the whole first quarter.
Yeah, and then they scored 10.5. And Parowan, on the flip side, really wasn't great either. But they were up, and then it was just really wasn't much of a game. It was actually kind of a boring game.
Yeah.
American Heritage never got anything going. It was really slow-paced. Parowan wasn't doing a whole lot, and they run it going away 48-33. It was a 15-point game, but it actually felt like it was a 30-point game.
Yeah.
Now, credit, on not to be lost in this, Parowan plays fantastic defense.
They do.
So I don't want to lay this all on American Heritage shooting bad. A lot of times when teams play that crappy, it's the result of fantastic defense on the other end. Mm-hmm. So American Heritage runs through Ricky Patterson, and Ricky Patterson, probably the first time all year that he was outmanned in the post.
Yep.
So you're not going to go score. I mean, he scored adequately. I mean, he had 19. A lot of those were late. You're not going to go out. You're not going to best Brock Felder in the paint. It's not going to happen.
No. So
they had American Heritage had 3 threes on the day for a team that shoots a lot of them. That just and like I said, to credit Parowan's defense, American Heritage didn't get a lot of good shots. Everything was contested.
Yeah.
Which leads to why you shot such a low shooting percentage. Mm-hmm. So one thing of Parowan. Throughout this tournament, their defense was rock solid.
They played good. They played really good.
Because you can defend the post. They have guards that can guard out on the perimeter. They just flat shut American Heritage down.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to, Brock Felder. We always talk about his offensive prowess. Brock influences the game with whatever he does, right?
Oh, he impacts how other teams offensively play for sure.
And so it's so... He definitely changed the trajectory in this game. I'm sure they know, hey, we got to go Felder, but then you got Millett too, and there was a lot of things going on, but they played well. So they move on.
So Parowan finds himself in a state championship game for the first time in about 20 years. Good for them.
Yep. And then in the nightcap, I think what many people thought would be a bit of a runaway game, the Kanab Cowboys and the Duchesne Eagles locked up. First quarter, 12-5. Duchesne was sluggish, just couldn't quite get things going. But then Duchesne outscores them in the second and third quarter, and it was game on.
It was Duchesne took the lead in the fourth quarter.
Yes,
they had the lead. Mm-hmm. And you were right. I think this was kind of a toss-away game. It was like, okay, Parowan's in. Then it was a matter of how far was Kanab going to win?
Right.
Are they going to stay healthy? Are they going to stay hot and be hot for the finals? And this is the game when I talk about Coach Hoops and his team. I don't have stats up here on this game that I can see. Irregardless, this is the game, in my opinion, that cemented how good of a coach Coach Hoops is.
Yeah.
Because really, the personnel and teams, Duchesne didn't have much business hanging with this game. Not only did they hang, they had a chance to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was just trying to look up stats. There's no stats listed for this game, but it did say that They made a 13-0 second half run. Duchesne did. They took off. And then Kanab was just a little bit too much down the stretch. I think Duchesne just got tired. The guys were getting tired towards the end. They put everything into it, and Kanab was just a little bit too much casing. And
that size, that Logan Little size. Yep. Logan had a couple big buckets in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. It's hard to lean on that size for fourth quarters. And Duchesne's done it admirably all season long, but this was just too much Cowboys in the end.
Mm-hmm. So it set the stage the next night for the girls with a rematch of arguably the two best teams, Beaver and Kanab, in what was an amazing. This is the first time in a long time that I've seriously sat down and really got engaged in a girls' state championship game, and it was everything I thought it was going to be.
It was so good. I'll kind of touch base on it. Kanab ended up winning 39-34, but Kanab winning the state championship last year, they do have that experience, but they came out a little slow. Let's take that back. I wouldn't say Kanab came out slow. I think Beaver came out hot as hot.
Or could you say
Beaver,
Danzy Bradshaw?
Okay, there we go.
Danzy Bradshaw was hot.
Came out hot.
I think at one point she had doubled up Kanab just herself.
She did. I think she had 18 or 20 at half.
Yeah.
And I was down there taking pictures. I texted my husband and said, well, Danzy 18, Kanab 15. She owned it, and I loved she was confident, and she came out ready to play. So Beaver in the first quarter was up 17-9. Slow second quarter for both teams was Beaver 5, Kanab 6. And then I think this is kind of where some experience and some good coaching adjustments came in after halftime by Kanab. Kanab outscored them 11-5 in that third quarter, and then 13-7 in the fourth quarter. So another thing I think played a big role in that is Anna Cutler and the Houston girl. Yeah. Both of them.
Houston had some big threes.
Big threes at times where they needed it more than anything. Cutler didn't really. I think she's taking good shots in the first half. They just weren't falling for her. And then, Ashlyn Houston gets hot. Anna kind of starts to follow, hit some big free throws down the end. And then on the other side of things with Beaver, Danzy kind of cooled off a little bit, I think.
Yeah. And she get tired?
Yeah, it looked like a lot of her shots in the third quarter were, hitting the front end of the rim. Yeah. You could tell like she was getting gassed.
Mm-hmm. And, whether she played the full game, so whether that's because of that or the adrenaline in the first half, that's a huge thing. She's a freshman and she came in with a lot of hype. Who knows if she died out or they just weren't falling, but she played great. And the whole game was so fun. The first half was all Beaver, second all Kanab, and then they get back-to-back state championships. So
Coach Mick Houston, I spent a lot of time visiting with him. When we were watching this game, I was by him, and he said this was almost a carbon copy of their last game they played this season. Beaver controlled the first half, came out of halftime, and it was like just completely flipped the script.
Mm-hmm. I was so impressed with a lot of these girls. I thought Gentry Brown played really well. She took some big shots. I mean, you're talking about underclassmen out there just gearing up and shooting threes in a state championship game. There was no fear. I can't say enough about Danzy Bradshaw. For a freshman, I don't know if she got tired or if just that adrenaline rush ran off, but in the second half, she looked a little tired, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
That's a big stage. I thought Talia Lisa played good. Overall, we were just two evenly matched teams down the stretch. I mean, Anna Cutler was just took over.
I think she was the game changer there.
Yeah, she was the game changer. They kept Riley under control. I think she had finished with 6 points. She wasn't offensively doing a lot, but defensively she played a huge part in that game. And then Houston had some big threes down the stretch. For sure.
Yeah, I liked that Talia Lisa Riley Little matchup too. Very different body styles, very different ways of playing, but they were challenging each other.
They got after it.
Yeah.
There was a couple times, I know one point Elisa ended up down on the floor, looked like an elbow to the head or something, and they were going at it.
One thing that's always, and this is what blew me away, is the poise that these guards play with, especially point guards, because people outside of that haven't played in that particular position, or just casual fans, you don't realize the amount of pressure that point guards are under. They get everything from the coach. They have to relay it to everybody. They have to get everybody in the right offensive positions to run sets, to change defenses, everything. And they have to handle the basketball, so they're getting hounded by everybody. They have so much pressure on them, and I was absolutely blown away by how the point guards, these, especially this one, Danzy Bradshaw and Anna Cutler, how they handled themselves.
For sure.
I mean, it's easy for them. Mm-hmm. They can handle the ball really well, and my experience, just watched very little small sample size. Generally, when girls get pressure, full court pressure, a lot of girls panic and fall apart.
Or head down,
just pounded into the trap or whatever. These guards are so skilled, fantastic players.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And another girl I wanted to shout out was Tawny Air on Beaver. So I'm pretty sure she guarded Anna the first half. Don't quote me on that. But she's not always your highest scorer, but she's a heck of a defender and one of those scrappy players. You know, if they don't have Tawny in there nearly all game, you know, they're not in these close games. She plays very hard, very tough, and I think she's an awesome player. Unfortunately, she's a senior. She's one of the big ones that Beaver's losing this next year, but
she had a huge shot in the fourth quarter.
She did.
A 3.
Yeah.
Huge. And honestly, these two teams have a very good chance of having a rematch next year.
So she's the only senior, you said?
They're not the only senior.
That is putting in big minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And Kanab's very similar to the same thing if they even have
Kanab has no seniors on the team.
No seniors on the team. So, can I call it now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm calling it the rematch next year.
I will. The other thing is, too, is so fun, and we talk about rural schools and how passionate they are. The fan bases, Beaver's student section, it was top notch.
Yeah.
And Kanab's, they were close. Beaver, if I had to compare them, Beaver had the edge.
Those huge fan bases.
When you got grown men showing up with painted bald heads.
I love that.
I mean, that's rural basketball. That's what we're all about. Is, you know, they are passionate. It's the identity of rural communities.
Yeah.
Is athletics, and you saw that with Kanab. I don't know if anything was open in Kanab on Saturday, but there had to have been thousands of people there from Kanab. I mean, and I'm sure there were people that live up north and everywhere else, but there were a lot of red there on Saturday night.
It was fun to see the traditional blue on one side and red on the other.
Yep.
It was a fantastic environment, for sure.
Great game, and congratulations on back-to-back state championships for Coach Glover and his Kanab Cowboys.
Yep, that's awesome.
Pretty exciting. So that rolled into the nightcap where, again, the Kanab Cowboys faced off for the third time this year against the Parowan Rams, and from the get-go, it was all Rams.
Yeah. It almost felt like Coach Shep was sitting by me, and it was very obvious Parowan was scoring easily, and everything that Kanab scored was hard. They were grinding to get every single point, and generally you can see right away how the game's going to play out based upon how easy teams can score. Mm-hmm. Typically, Kanab scores easily. Coach Glazier's, in my opinion, a tactical genius, the way he puts players in positions to get easy they get a lot of easy baskets. And in this game, you could see that they weren't going to get those, and they didn't. I don't think really anything looked easy the whole night for the Cowboys.
No, and
now to their credit, they were grinding it out, and they were scoring, and they were staying up with them. But it seemed like they were always just fighting to stay close.
Yep. And I noticed, too, they spent an exorbitant amount of energy, especially down in the post, guarding Millett and Felter.
Yeah,
between Case and Janes, Brandon Dea came in late in the game, and Derek Brown.
Logan Little.
Those guys were just, it's all they gave to them all night to try to keep Brock out of the post, and then they're battling with Luke. And I think that contributed to a lot of it. You know, Felder's a difference maker wherever he is, and Brock still ends up with 32. And it seemed like as the game went on, he would get it down the post. They had 3 guys on him, and he still found a way. He'd just go and elevate. Did
you have a free throw breakdown like he had?
I don't know of Felder, but
or how many Parowan shot?
Total free throws, Parowan shot 21. Kanab shot 23.
Oh, okay. Like I said, there was a lot of fouls in this game.
There was an exorbitant amount of fouls. I know a bunch of guys fouled out towards the end of regulation. A couple shout-outs down the stretch. Cale Glover, icing that kid's veins.
Smallest player on the court, the biggest stones there was.
I remember
the whole weekend.
They were down 3, and they called a timeout, and they said, who are we going to get it to? And Jet was sitting in front of me, and I said, they're going to Cale. And sure enough, they got him over in the corner. For a sophomore and a little guy out there, ice in his veins.
Have you watched the replay of that shot?
I haven't.
Coach, have you watched it? I mean, it is a spectacularly difficult. I mean, it's not like it was a pass that came right out to him that he could step in and shoot the three. He's on the run, making the turn, catching.
Fading to the left.
Fading a little bit. I mean, high level of difficulty. And it was, like I said, the stones of this kid, unreal. Absolutely unreal.
Yeah, I'm going to say.
He had a few others before that, too.
Down the stretch, Kaysen got in trouble. Kaysen fouled out. There was a lot of emotion towards the end of the game, a lot of back and forth. It just felt, at times it almost felt like it was ready to get out of control.
No, that three was, it was under a minute, wasn't it?
Under a minute, yeah.
To tie it up.
Yeah.
But it might have been under 30 seconds.
No, I think it was about at 15.
Yeah, something real close. Because they had to make one more stop when Parowan came down the other end. And Brock had an absolutely fantastic. He caught it with maybe 5 seconds at the post, and kind of stalled a little bit, and then just turned and had a bunny at the free throw line that rimmed out to go to OT.
Yeah. So the game goes into overtime, back and forth. Bunch of Kanab guys. Kaysen ends up fouling out.
Derek Brown,
Derek Brown ends up fouling out. Cash Mortensen went out late in the fourth, fouled out.
Luke fouled out.
Luke fouled out. There was a lot of fouls.
So that overtime was a grinder, because you had Parowan just trying to hang on, so they're throwing in. They had a freshman in there. They had a sophomore in there. Hadn't seen much time. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to grind this thing out. Kanab's trying to find some offense. That was from overall fans, it was kind of a stressful grinder.
It was a stressful game. Eventually, Parowan pulls it out towards the end. It was just kind of scrappy towards the end. Congratulations to the Rams. There was a couple plays down the stretch. I think all of us, our hearts breaking for Cale Glover today. I mean, that's, anybody who's ever been in those type of situations, you say, oh, how can you not just get that ball? There's so much adrenaline going through that kid at that point in that game, and that pressure. I don't know how to explain it. It's just, there's so many things going on that you try to just go through the motions, and I'm sure the adrenaline got the best of him, and I know he felt horrible and heartbreaks for the kid, because without him, I don't think they end up in overtime.
Not at all.
And even in overtime, he hit a huge three.
He did.
Too,
he played his guts out, and I think all those kids, they left it out. You hear that? I hate that cliche, but those teams left it out there on Saturday.
Cale Glover is another one that fits into that same point guard role for me. And every team knows, if you're going to beat Kanab, you're going to have to defend Coach Glazier's offensive sets. Mm-hmm. One of the first defensive adjustments tactics coaches can make is hound the hell out of the point guard to slow their progression of getting into their sets, or force him to a side of the court that he doesn't want to go to disrupt the timing of the sets. And for him as a sophomore to handle all of that in the state tournament, to handle the pressure, because that's what Parowan brought. They have defenders on him the whole time, hounding him, and the kid misses one shot, and unfortunately is a tough one, but the way he plays was absolutely admirable and unbelievably impressive.
Yeah, I was very impressed. There are a lot of things that stood out over the state
tournament. Not one person would blame this game on Cale Glover.
Oh no, this game didn't come down to that. I could say my opinion. It's just my opinion. Cale kept him in this game late. He was the one. He was the one that settled him down, got him into offense, made the big shots. He was the kid doing it out there.
Totally random observation. He came up earlier in the tournament. He came up. I was sitting kind of by his parents. And he walked up. He's a small dude.
He's tiny.
He is not a very large statured young man. But man, the way he plays, special player.
Yeah, and I really noticed Kale. This just kind of digress. I really noticed Kale last year on their baseball team. He plays third base. He doesn't stop. The kid, you would never know he's the little guy out there. But he's got so much confidence.
I love this. I love the swagger. I love the confidence and the passion. You don't teach that to kids. They just naturally have it, and he's a natural gamer.
Yep.
Just is. Love to have him on my team anytime.
Absolutely.
I'd take him any day.
Congratulations to Parowan Rams. They finish off the season as 2A state champions. Felder finished with 32. Cash Mortensen, fantastic tournament for Cash, 10 points. Here's another unsung hero down the stretch. Waylon Robinson made some huge free throws in the fourth quarter and overtime.
Great point. We're
Kelsey
at
brothers. But there's a couple guys. Hunter Bettridge came in and played
Hold on. I did it again, Andy. My bad. Hold on. Carry on, though.
Hunter Bettridge, who hasn't seen a lot of minutes this year, came in and played big in the freshman as a freshman. I mean, that's
some pucker time right
that's
there.
That's a big stage. He came in. I can't say enough about Luke Millen. He finished with 4 points, but the guy, I mean, he was banging all night long. They were going at him, and I would say, without Waylon made some big free throws, and without Luke in there, those guys were the difference makers. Cash Morton was getting us his, and Brock's Brock, right? But Parowan can't win without that supporting cast, and those guys, they made the 6 points that Waylon Robinson had and the 4 points that Luke had. That was the difference in the game.
And I would bet most of those 6 of Waylon's were in the fourth quarter or overtime.
And I think most of them were free throws.
Yeah. So,
what a great game! What a great way to finish off the season.
and I think, in a state championship game, this was probably the ideal in a state championship game because they were so evenly matched. Not in the fact that such elation for the winner and such absolute heartbreak for the loser.
Yeah.
You will find some where teams are favorites and they win and the losing team's disappointed. But this was such an evenly matched game that you knew one team was going to go away absolutely crushed.
And we felt that on the way home. It was like, holy cow! I mean, we're still trying to stay neutral in all this, and we left going home. Last year it was San Juan and the whole thing that happened at the end with Jaden Black and making the free throws and
High drama
and so excited for San Juan. And then you saw Enterprise. It was like with seconds left, it was like they'd won, and all of a sudden they were crushed, and you're like, holy cow! And I think that's what. Again, this is the identity of these small rural schools, and I think it's probably the same way for Beaver. Those people from Beaver, I imagine they had a long drive home yesterday saying, oh, man.
I told Cody, I said, well, when we woke up this morning, I was like, you want to know what the worst thing about losing a state championship is waking up the next day remembering that it just happened.
You would know.
Yeah, I would know. And, I mean, I hope for those younger girls on Beaver – I know Kanab's losing a lot of seniors, but I hope it fuels the fire a little bit.
Yeah,
it's hard.
I can only imagine.
The thing I put in, I was thinking, I was trying to figure out why I was overall. The tournament was, I wasn't quite as excited throughout the whole tournament as I thought I would be, and I finally pinpointed it today as to why. And this is just me speaking selfishly here. I've got to know these coaches so well. Many of them, I don't know all of them, but many of them I've got to know so well at a personal level as to how much they have invested in this, and how much they want to win, and all of them. I don't know Coach Murphy, so that's why I can say this. I would like to get to meet him. I have never met him before. I've met some of his staff, but I've not met Coach Murphy. So all of my good friends lost this weekend, and some of them very early on. And I know how disappointed and crushed they were, and probably maybe we're not the right people to be in the media department because you're supposed to be neutral and you're supposed to not have favorites and be unbiased. But I'm guilty. I do.
Yeah.
I really do. And I know what coaches put into this stuff, and I know some of my very, very best friends in the coaching business how disappointed and crushed they were that they couldn't help their kids get to where they thought they should get to.
Yeah, Kale stuck in my mind all night. I felt bad for him. I got up this morning and was at church, and I was feeling bad for Coach Glazier, and I was just typing up a text this afternoon, and basically I said like I don't know what to say, because nothing I'm going to say is going to take the sting away, other than thanks for letting us be a part of it.
Yeah.
Because it is when you get to this point and you get emotionally invested in a lot of these teams.
Well, you get invested in kids and players. It's
yeah.
I didn't think we would get to that level, but it is honestly true. I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's just it. I think you get to know people so well, you become emotionally invested in
parents too.
How many parents? And I mean, we sat and talked to a lot of parents and random people and kids and grandparents. I sat and talked. I've become good friends with Coach Randall's dad, and we sat and talked during the first quarter the other day. And you get emotionally invested in a lot of them. We talked to folks from Duchesne and Enterprise and Kanab and all these different places, and it's hard not to feel the same heartbreak when those, and we didn't even have a kids or team playing. And I went home last night, I'm like, man, I'm depressed.
No, it was. Now we did visit with just for a short time. I did visit with Bo Millett's parents, Luke Millett's parents.
Yeah,
we're very, very good friends with them. So I got a chance to visit with them on. Because it was Friday or Saturday morning, either one.
Yes.
I got both Buddy and Tammy got a chance to visit with them a lot, and so we did go down. I just saw Luke just real quick after congratulating him after the game, and his mother was very emotional. She's an emotional parent. So you see that, and once again you see the winning side of it that we personally know. I don't know many others from Parowan, but just personally to see the relief and the joy and the absolute, I guess, the thrill of winning. Tammy was very, very emotional winning, and so we're starting to see all of. That's why it's such a not weird, but it was a very emotional weekend. Just seeing all these dynamics from every level, player, coach, and parent.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun.
Maybe we should detach a little bit, but it's too. I just love meeting people. It's cool.
Yeah. Thanks for being part of it.
It's fun.
How was your weekend overall, Peyton?
Just like you said, it was great.
Of course, then you have the element of actually having sisters playing as well.
Yep. I mean, that was a little bit of added stress, but it was just fun to go up and watch basketball. I do think I overdid my 14 hours on Thursday. By the time the boys...
I love the post when you're laying on the table after the...
I know, I had to do it because we were waiting for my sisters to come out, and they took like 30 minutes, and by that time we were, going on 14 hours in the gym. I just needed to lay down. But, it was great. Lots of good basketball. There's nothing like 2A state tournaments.
Oh, it was awesome.
So fun.
And it could be because you're 8 months pregnant and have a little toddler.
Yeah, that definitely plays into it.
Thank you, and
congratulations to Coach Murphy and the Parowan Rams for a state championship, because it's not very many coaches get a chance to hoist the trophy.
Very few.
They just don't, and there's coaches that put in 20 years, 30 years that never get a chance to hoist that. So congratulations to Coach Murphy and his staff. They're the fortunate ones this year.
Absolutely. Well, great tournament. And on the girls' side, congratulations to Coach Coach Glover, not Glazier.
Back-to-back.
Yep.
Down there in Kanab, and for all we know, they may have a dynasty. They do a three-peat.
Maybe a three-peat. We'll see.
Know. It'll be exciting next year. Well, we appreciate you joining us for tonight for this wrap-up, which has been a very quick 2A season. We're not done. It's actually about 9 o'clock right now, and this is our first of 2 podcasts. We're just getting ready to load up on our top 20 team.
Our player draft. We're going to knock it out.
It's going to get exciting. So we appreciate everybody listening, everybody reaching out to us this season. Make sure you tune in and check out the top 20 draft. And we're not done with basketball yet this year before we turn the page and move on to track and field. I actually talked to Coach Mason for a little while on Saturday, and he's excited about his track.
That guy's been excited for track since last season ended.
He's passionate. I'm like, hey, you ready for track? He's like, well, let's get basketball over first. But he was telling me how excited he is for track. So we're getting ready. Spring sports are here.
Baseball, softball,
I don't know
tracks coming up.
The weather's ready to cooperate yet. But as we've said before, when it's track and baseball season, it's time to be cold.
Yep, that's when it starts snowing.
I think games start as early as next week, and
Yes,
there's no
they
way
do.
they're playing games in very many places but St. George.
No, I talked to Coach Morrow, Bo Morrow from North Summit, and he said they still have 18 inches of snow on their field, and they probably will not play a home game this year.
Yeah.
So, welcome to springtime in Utah.
Yep.
Again, we thank you for joining us tonight on the fourth row. So for everybody here, for Coach Benny Hill, for Peyton, the newest member.
It's been an awesome ride, Peyton.
It has. Thanks for
you.
letting
Glad
me
you
come
introduced
this year.
us to girls basketball.
You
Yes.
bet. Thanks for having
It's been
me.
everything we thought we'd be. I'm Andy Hill, and for the fourth row, we're out.
Thank you for spending your time with the Fourth Row. For more information, check out our website at fourthrowmedia.com or send us a message through any of our social media channels.